15 degrees, you can see your breath. Out here in the lake effect, breaking tables like it's poetry. Where else would you rather be? Pinto, Ron, Elvis, and the Lay Poncho. The members that you need to know. 'Cause once you out here, now you're family. Where else would you rather be? Where else would you rather be?
Welcome into the Nickel City Crew. I am your host, Rob Crippen. Please like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Nickel City Crew. This episode, along with all of our episodes, are presented by Crippen Legacy Entertainment here on Spreaker and StreamYard. We're so glad that you're joining us for some of your Buffalo Bills and NFL content again today. And as always, these are my Bills thoughts said out loud.
It's a vibe so ridiculous. Since 12 plus 83 was 6. The shout rocking like a symphony. Where else would you rather be?
All right, let's get straight to it. Whew, what a week we have had, Bills Mafia. It's funny because I was literally getting ready to for work, and I was going in a little late, and DT, my co-host, text messaged me and said, hey, you know what I mean? Look at what Brandon Beane had to say on Jeremy and Joe on the WGR morning show. And I quickly went to Twitter and found out that everyone was freaking out across the entire mafia. Now, obviously, Twitter's not the entire mafia, but the Twitter mafia was freaking out. Instagram was freaking out, and Bills Mafia was in a tizzy. To discuss that and obviously the 2025 NFL Draft and the selections after Max Harrison, which we did that episode last week. Joining me tonight, my co-host, as always, riding shotgun, Adam Dump Truck Rupsick. Holla at the crew. You can check him out on Instagram and Twitter at Adam Rupsick, RUPCZYK. Holla at the crew, DT. What's good? I'm excited.
Nickel City, what's up? Got a great show tonight. Hope everyone had a great week. Feel Good Friday. Rob, what's up, baby? We're back, and it keeps us entertained. In the dead season, the draft obviously always hypes that up, but obviously this week was a little hotter on that front too. So pumped up to get into it tonight. Kind of evaluate the draft and obviously talk the drama that we just went through. But good to be here as always. Feel Good Friday, Nickel City Crew. Rob, let's rock, baby.
I'm ready, man. TGIF, Nickel City Crew, Bills Mafia. We love you guys. Now, it's funny because I say Twitter. I told you, DT, about a couple months ago that I was starting to enjoy it. Last season, at the end of season 4, I was like, man, I'm starting to enjoy boxing and sparring. And then that's how I met our guest, who is now a friend of the show. Check him out on Instagram and Twitter. That's where I met him, at Scott M. Frey. That's Frey. Listen, this dude saw me crashing out because DT, by Monday night, there was a space that was open, and shout out to Lee Sean and shout out to Whittle. Those guys run a great space, and they always give, Bills Mafia and the fans on Twitter a voice and an opportunity to speak what they feel. Scott, I am not embarrassed, but Scott witnessed me crashing out all the way. I must have been on there for 2 hours. I was getting tired, and I was worried. I felt like Neo in the Matrix. I felt like Neo. I was fighting every Mr. Smith that came out from behind the actual walls, man. I was crashing out. Scott got a chance to witness that. Holla at the crew, Scott. What's good, man? Welcome back.
What's going on, Nickel City, man? Great to be here again. It's been a hot minute, and man, what a week, right? What off season, man? Something else, man. And appreciate your energy. You probably need to amp it up a little bit, right? It seemed a little.
Oh my God. I love it. Yeah. For those that did listen, that are part of the crew, yes, I did crash out on Monday night. So what was that crashing out about? Unless you have been under a rock, which I said a couple times this season, I don't know how you wouldn't know, but our general manager was on his little tour and making his roundabouts after the 2025 NFL draft completed. And he went on the Jeremy White and Joe show, the Jeremy and Joe DiBiase. They went on the WGR show. And what happened was, really, I had to listen back to it. I know the DT said that he listened to it. How did you guys receive it in respects to how did you hear about it and stuff like that? Because from my perspective, DT told me about it. So I listened and I was like, you know what? Let me gain full perspective and know exactly why he came off the top rope like Macho Man Randy Savage. So I listened to the Sal Capaccio segment, and I guess that's kind of the impetus and kind of where it started, DT, where it started, Scott, was that, Jeremy and Joe were talking about Jeremy to ask him, like, why don't you choose to invest in the wide receiver position a little bit more, urgently, that type of thing in respects to the draft and things like that. And Brandon Beane went off the top rope for real, like literally Hulk Hogan, and just told them, like, what are you guys talking about? He called it the dumbest argument I've ever heard, and noted that he had drafted Josh Allen, which we know that's a feather in his cap. He noted that they have scored 30 points a game. I saw some cool stuff on Twitter this week about hanging banners for 30 points a game, which we do not do. And he let him know that he is a strong proponent of everybody eats. DT, how did it hit you? I know that you listened to it all as well, and for full context. How did it hit you? What did you think about it before I give my thoughts at the end?
Sure. Well, I got it live, which was kind of cool. This is
you heard it live?
I hope nobody higher up is listening to this currently, but something to what I'd like to do on Monday, especially during football season.
Okay.
This happens pretty much every Monday.
Okay.
But little groggy, getting off the weekend, getting into Monday, and so I kind of get out, get my original, get stuff done, and then I go, and my get out around 8:30 is hey, I'm gonna go pick up coffee for everybody, and nobody complains about that.
Of course,
I head out, I get coffee, and then it usually happens pretty quick. Maybe I get a breakfast sandwich or whatever, and I just sit in the OTB next door to the Tim Hortons near my office.
Okay.
And I just kind of daze out and just get into the Monday for a little while. And it's a nice little routine. And this happened as during kind of my days out. And at this point, I mean, GR is just on the car all the time. I'm not, love it or hate it. It just kind of, if I'm not listening to my music, it's GR, obviously.
It's like brown noise. It's like
exactly. Just some white noise, not really thinking much of it. They say Brandon Beane's coming on, wanted to get, okay, let's see what he thinks about the draft, so on and so forth. And he came on just swinging right out of the gate, just, like preface the swing, like said, you talked about the 2018 draft and like
said bitching like, 3 times or something then, like that.
You're bitching now. All you're good for is bitching, everything in between. I loved it. I'm a very, big critique of WGR that it's kind of a soft network through and through. I think the hosts are all, we're all kind of whatever. And then when the Bills got good, they acted like they got good with the Bills and kind of act a little pompous sometimes to the exterior world and callers and whatnot. And I don't think they do anything really controversial. I don't, so overall, I think it's a pretty soft network. And this was, I liked because it kind of pumped it up a little and brought it to that sports talk, level, that radio, that Mike Francesa.
I was going to say like Mad Dog. Yeah.
Mad Dog, Stephen A. and Stephen A's on TV, but you know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
That type of entertainment purpose where, there's a back and forth. We'll get into the actual breakdown of what side we lay on tonight of this, but I like the energy. I like Brandon Beane having his own back on his draft. I think I don't want a general manager question is in his draft going into the Monday recap. So I like him having the confidence of it. I think Jeremy and Joe were definitely caught off guard. They did not know that this dude was about to come in.
Rightfully
like
so.
So I wasn't too critical of how they handled it. In the beginning I was, but
they were professional. They were professional.
Hey, you get your job is to critique this guy's job that you don't do. That's your job, right?
Correct.
And you finally get this guy in your house kind of puffing out his chest and, in the words they used, belittling you. I don't think it was that, but
that was
belittling you. And it was just kind of like, I don't know, I guess like, and they weren't ready for it. So I can't really be too critical of them there, but I loved it. I love the energy. I think, that's what sports radio needs. I think it's tension that in the Mafia, everybody knows this kind of argument back and forth. And this kind of just made it reality that like what everyone's kind of thinking and talking about. And like you said, behind the scenes on Twitter or whatever, it came to the forefront at the highest level, got a lot of media attention all week. I don't think it hurts us by any means, but we'll get into the nitty gritty of the actual context of it as we go. But I liked it. It kind of caught me off guard, just as everybody. It was a good way to start the Monday. I like the fire.
Yeah, it's funny that you said that, about behind the scenes, because I think that that's really true, Scott, because you know me on Twitter, and you know that I have been behind the scenes on the wide receiver train and fighting people, different things like that throughout my experiences, most recently when Everybody Eats got introduced. How did it take you? How did you consume it on Monday? How did you hear about it? Because like I said, DT told me about it. I was getting ready for work. I didn't even know that it was going on, and I was maybe about 20 to 30 minutes late in respects to like the whole cycle of it. And then I went back on the Odyssey app. I listened to Sal Capaccio because I wanted to hear what started it. And then I went from there and caught back up with everybody. But how did it land for you on Monday?
Yeah, so I like listening to WGR. I don't live in the Buffalo area. I'm not in Western New York anymore. I grew up there, but I'm in West Central Ohio.
Right.
And so I catch it on the Odyssey app.
Right.
And I heard it live. And I about drove off the road when Beane came out because Jeremy and Joe didn't ask any questions.
Nope.
Beane came right out and said, you guys are bitching just like you did in 2018, and kind of ripped him on the Rosen thing,
Right.
And I thought that was, at first, I thought that was just a little fun poke, at Jeremy or whatever.
He was
serious. And then he doubled down on the wide receiver thing. And, my take on that was, I think Brandon missed the context.
He sure
did. They do talk a lot about it, and it's no secret Jeremy's all about getting that wide receiver, give Josh all the tools. And he's a proponent of that. But I thought Brandon came in just hotter than context required. But I liked it, because normally I just want to mess his hair up sometimes, because he's just always put together. He speaks very well, speaks very highly of everybody.
Country boy.
And I felt like we got a little, pull the curtain back a little bit on what's cooking in there. And I love to know that my GM's got some fire in his belly. So I agree. I don't think he personally belittled anyone. I know he dropped the thing about
the fantasy football is all they were talking about. Yeah, that's all they were talking about. That's like saying, the Bills can't score 50 points a game. Like, well, we fucking know that they're not going to score 50 points a game.
I don't think Jeremy and Joe need to take that terribly personally, but I can't imagine it felt great live on the air coming at you. And you're like, shit, this is the GM of an NFL franchise. Like, what do I do? And I'm like, Rob, Adam, I'm sorry. I thought they did a nice job of handling it. You could tell, like DiBiase, when you look at the YouTube clip, he was like,
he's like,
what am I hearing?
A kid when you were getting yelled at, or in I remember in a basketball game, I committed a horrendous turnover, and we call timeout, and my coach just buries me. I'm
you can feel your blood pressure rise, and you're turning red.
Trying to agree just so it gets over, and that's what Joe was doing. Just yeah.
I enjoy WGR, and it's funny because half the people on Twitter think they're too pro Bills, and the other half think they're the opposite. And so welcome to the internet, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But
I agree.
I don't think there's any need for them to take that personally. I thought it was an awesome moment, and again, I like that. What do they say? Big baller Beane. Came out swinging, and you just take that any way you like. So I think it was cool where he came from, but I think he was a little out of context. I don't think it's as bad as he was making it out to be, but it made for awesome radio. And it was cool that Jerry and Joe caught some national media attention. Somebody was botching Jeremy's name.
That's on Nick Wright. Nick Wright and those guys. He called them Jerry.
He probably did it on purpose. Yeah,
Nick Wright did that, and then it just kind of caught fire because the entire segment Nick kept saying Jerry and Joe.
The meat and the mafia a little bit, So,
man.
And then we turn around, and 2 days later, we sign Elijah Moore.
Yeah.
So
let's get
a lot
into
to talk about. Yeah.
So
I thought it was cool. Yeah.
I mean, listen, I was definitely taken aback by the fact that he was, cussing and calling and saying that they're bitching and stuff like that. I thought the Josh Allen thing was definitely a puffing out my chest. I'm letting you know that I've got your franchise quarterback that you all love and have highlights of and buy Madden covers and stuff like that. So I get where he was coming from in respects to that. I thought that he was definitely a little bit aggressive in respects to after I listened to Sal Capaccio. So he's the one that referenced that I was listening to you guys while I was waiting. So what he was listening to was the end of the conversation with Capaccio, and they didn't really say anything other than they just asked Sal, and he said, I'm going to ask Brandon, why doesn't he invest in it? Now, when this was something that was on Twitter that I could get into arguments with, was because of the fact that when we say the word invest as members of the wide receiver train, and I'm talking about myself, I'm not speaking for you guys because I'm definitely firmly on that train. I'm talking about it for percentages. I'm talking about the best opportunity. So a guy that's drafted in the 7th round that we'll talk about later is not the same to me as somebody that's drafted in the 3rd or 4th round. The reason being because, no, of course we don't know if the 7th rounder is going to be as good. That's Christian Benford. That's a wonderful story. He beats out Kyrie Elam, the 1st round pick. That's what football is. Football is a meritocracy. You go out there and you earn it. I was simply talking about what are your best possibilities? What are your best odds? Your best odds and your best chances are to draft those guys earlier because they have the traits or whatever the case may be. So I was a little bit caught off guard because of the fact that I didn't expect it to come and start that way. But then when I got into it, I was like, you know what? I think Brandon missed the point because of the fact that I think even people from the wide receiver train, they're on the train with me and they're coming down the aisles with the carts and they're passing out cookies and shit. We all knew that it was going to be a defensive draft. Yeah. I knew that. We talked about that, DT, on our pre-draft review. We talked about, like, listen, it's going to be a defensive draft. And what did you and I say, DT, at the end of the show? We just want a weapon. Just give Josh more weapons. Now, Scott alluded to it that Brandon Beane kind of covers up for that by getting Elijah Moore a couple days later, or I think it was, a couple days later, like you said, because we found out right after that interview that Elijah was in town for the meeting. So I feel like Brandon already knew that Elijah was coming in town. They hadn't had anything worked out, and he just got a chance to just sit back and puff his chest and had a little bit of Rick Ross energy, DT. That's what I think that it was. He knew Elijah was coming in town, and then he actually revealed the other day that he told Elijah in his camp, listen, we're going to put a pin in it right now. We're going to see how the draft goes, and then we'll circle back and see if you're still interested after the draft. Let's see how it goes. That right there tells you that they wanted a wide receiver if the board fell. So to me, it's a little bit disingenuous because, again, I can't stand everybody eats. So that means that the GM, when he traded for Cooper last year, that was like, you're telling me that you know that this shit ain't working. Yeah, it's kind of the same thing with Elijah Moore. You knew you needed somebody else, regardless of if you got him in the draft or not.
Sure, because, I mean, his point in the call of, hey, this is my, like, this receiver room is a lot better than last year's receiver room. Like, how can you not see that? It's like, well, like, what do you mean? Like, Josh Palmer? Like, we don't know anything about this guy. Like, is it that much better? Like, yeah, we paid some dudes, and yeah, we expect there's some progression with the guys we have, but, like, I mean, it's not like there's some brand name that makes it like, oh yeah, it's easily is better. But right. I see it both ways. Just the human aspect of it. I mean, I've done this, like, and I need to get better at it. And I felt bad every time I did this week, but, like, you get, like, overwhelmed and shit's everywhere, and somebody calls you and you just kind of, like,
lash out,
take it out on them, and it's not that, like, it's their fault. And the situation, I think, Monday was the draft has got to be the busiest weekend of Brandon Beane's year. Of course. Yes, he's on it all the time, but during the season, he's not, like, coaching practice or doing anything like that. So the draft has to be his busiest weekend, literally.
It's his Super Bowl.
And he goes in there, probably hasn't slept in 4 days. And to what he and the organization think, they had a very solid draft. Some of the guys they were very excited to get, and we'll get into that tonight on what we think about it. But he thinks very solid draft, and kind of the first thing he's hearing off of that from the fan, because GR is an extension of the fan base, I think, and that's what kind of they take it as. The first thing he's hearing is, well, yeah, maybe they're going to be good on defense, but we don't have any receivers. So I think he just kind of, he just was like, you know what, screw it. These guys talk shit about, like, not talk shit, but these guys critique. I'm tired. We had a good draft. Nobody's going to stop me. So I'm just going to go and kind of tear these dudes up. And it probably felt good for him to do. He probably felt bad a little bit about it later. And it's like, this attention is probably not what we needed. But just the human aspect, again, like, to kind of downplay it a little. And as what Scott was saying earlier, like, don't take it offensive, Jeremy Joe, like, whatever. Right. The dude was just coming off his busiest weekend, thinks he had a good draft, and then instantly people are on him about a wide receiver, and he's probably just like, fuck off,
and he's got one in the pipeline that nobody knows about.
Right, that nobody knows about. It's funny because he did go on, the media tour, and he goes on McAfee, and he goes on different shows and stuff like that, and he obviously was more measured and definitely not the same type of energy, because I think I do get his point, Scott, in respects to the fact that, again, I thought it was going to be a defensive draft, so I was not surprised. I thought the only surprise I had was that how heavy it was. They went all the way in, even their one offensive guy earlier on in the later round
5 of the first 6.
Yes, and it was like, and then they get the guy that's a blocking guy who could possibly be a replacement for Alec Anderson for those big packages, stuff like that. So it was a situation where I was just a little bit surprised how heavy they went. That's all. That I was looking for that sweet spot. DT and I talked about it. You heard it, Scott, a couple weeks ago, like maybe 3rd, 4th round. Yeah. Let's take a flyer, that type of thing. But they went all the way. Maybe it was his board, like he said. Clearly, it was his board because he didn't draft one until the 7th round.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about this draft, and I don't know if we're going to transition there, but they're to the point where they're having to grab specific traits and characteristics. Like, I mean, a great big stud, wide receiver 1 would be fun and great. But what they really need is somebody that can get open, separate, peel the top off the defense now and then. Speed. That little blast of speed is like the last real strong characteristic that was missing. And with Elijah Moore, they got some of that. So we'll see. I don't think anybody was asking for, Chase,
first round pick,
to come in here, or whatever, first round type pick, hey, let's figure out a way to get that cat from Colorado up here.
I liked him.
So him. He would, that would have been fun.
Colorado State. You're talking about the Tory guy. Yeah, that's what I liked. I liked him.
So, at any rate, all that stuff aside on WGR, I thought we had a pretty cool draft. And the one dude I'm looking forward to checking out is this Landon Jackson guy from Arkansas.
He keeps getting I
want to see what he's all about, man. He looks kind of scary. He's another big, long, like 6'7", 6'8". He's built like Groot. And it, this draft
42 inch vertical.
Yeah. This draft to me is Buffalo drafting freaks. And that seems to be kind of the part of the thing that Beane and McDermott is they want these freak athletic guys that can do the things that work in their system. But if you look at all these guys, aside from like Hairston, to me seems like a potential blue chip corner. He's a top end, one of the best cover corners in the draft, particularly in man coverage. But the rest of these guys are pretty specialized with what they bring. And I think that's kind of a cool place to be. I just hope it works. But it's a cool place to be with your roster because we're not, you look at where New England was before the offseason started, and oh my gosh, they were like a JV professional football team roster-wise. No disrespect, but
right
now they got a lot better.
We can disrespect them. Screw the Patriots.
But we're not at that point.
I mean,
we're fine tuning. Other than filling that D line, we needed some talent on the D line, but beyond that, we're fine tuning, and I think that's kind of exciting. I just hope the guys we got can deliver in the precise things we need. TJ Sanders is a very specific type of D lineman. Deion Walker, same thing. Landon Jackson, same thing.
Well, let's go through it because you're absolutely right. Let's go through it because it's funny. I was at Nate's Soccer on last week, DT, when the draft's going on, and I'm watching the game, and all the parents are out there, and I'm the one degenerate that I'm watching the game. But like, if he subs out of the game, I've got the draft literally streaming on YouTube TV, and I'm like watching, and then and the Sanders pick comes up. So then obviously the Bills go ahead and move. Now they moved for TJ, right? They moved for TJ and they moved for Deion. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So when they trade up, I'm texting my boys and they're like, it's got to be a wide receiver. Who you think it's going to be? And I'm like, I don't know, but I'm excited as hell. And Nate had subbed out of the game. And I was glued. I'm not even watching the soccer at all. And then when it comes up TJ Sanders, I remember seeing that name during our pre-draft coverage, DT, because me and you we're not nerds, we're not draft nerds, we don't know all the guys, stuff like that. And thank you, Sarah. Sarah says that we moved up 15 spots for him, and I was like, this has got to be a receiver. And so then then everybody's flipping out and stuff like that. Now they say that he's more 3 tech than 1 tech, but he has some abilities to play the 1 tech, but he's really a penetrator, kind of like Ed Oliver, who we already have. So I was very interested in that. Obviously, that's why you have to let the draft develop and you have to let stuff come out and flesh out because of the fact that we didn't know about Deion a couple rounds later. So round 2, Bills get TJ Sanders. Again, they project him to be a 3 tech, kind of a backup to Ed Oliver, but he's got a little bit of 1 tech in him in respects to the fact that he's firm, but he's quick, he's twitchy, he's going to try to get up the field. Then round 3, Landon Jackson, who seems to be almost universally everybody's favorite pick. Scott, they said that this dude was supposed to be like, he could have been early second round, late first round, depending on who you talk to, what scouting department you talk to. As you talked about, as alluded to, 6'6", 264. He's kind of cut from that cookie mold of an AJ Epinesa, but just more juice. They say he plays with his hair on fire. That is obviously no pun intended. I know that he has alopecia. I knew DT's gonna pick up on that shit. Like I'm what I'm saying is that that's what they say, that his mode or whatever. He's got that Hutchinson.
Well, kind of comps like Max Crosby, that big, tall, rangy, super athletic D end, and we can only hope that that's what he turns into. But all the parts are there, man.
But it seems like everything is there for the guy, and he's had some production. Obviously, he had a little bit less production last year at Arkansas, but I know he started out his career earlier, his college career, and he was really getting it after it. DT then is one of the, let's shout out to Mama Monday. She's been waiting for it and talking shit to us and saying years and years and years she's waiting for her one tech. The Bills not only get their one tech, but they get one in a controversial pick. So for Nickel City Crew who doesn't know, this guy was fire 2 years ago. Last year was not as fire. What they were saying about Deion Walker, 4th round pick, a mountain of a man. I mean, 6'7", 331. They were saying last year that he was dealing with a back issue, and that's why he wasn't as productive as he was 2 years ago. Played for Kentucky along with teammates with Max Harrison. DT, this dude is huge. They said he could have been a first rounder had his tape backed up what he did in 2023. I mean, they say you got to steal, and I know guys like Joe Marino who can't stand it. They said he was undraftable for him.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He said he was undraftable. Yeah, maybe not undraftable, but he said he wanted the Bills to stay clear.
Got it. Okay. Well,
too top heavy. He thought he would be just.
What sticks out for me in these first 4 picks is SEC. Mm-hmm. We got, granted, Ohio State won last year, but SEC, kind of the renowned football mecca of the world in college football, and I think we'll see with NIL. But studs in the Southeastern Conference playing studs, and that's what I liked out of this. Like, these guys on the defensive end are matched up against guys that went first, second, third round, all draft, out of the SEC, and are going to be pros and are going to be guys they're going to see on Sundays every week. So I like kind of seeing that SEC conglomerate of guys picked, and granted, most of the picks come from them anyway, but we went 4 for 4 right out of the gate with that. Kind of going, like, not just to keep this about wide receiver and not wide receiver, but the first pick with the corner, Harrison, was obviously our guy. Like, they wanted that guy because every corner and every, really, other than the Arizona receiver, every receiver and every corner was on the board at 30, and they went and they took this guy. So it showed that was their guy. So I'm cool with that. You go into the second round, the trade up. I'm with you, Rob. I initially was like, must have been somebody nice.
I was ready.
And, receiver wise, and they go TJ Sanders. So if they're moving up that far to get that guy, they're basically saying it's impossible. They're going to get him, where they were sitting, and that they wanted it. So big in with that. Landon Jackson's turning in, like you said, everybody is loving this guy. Everyone's saying it's the best pick we made, and the intangibles with it. And he might be, that personality trait on the defensive line that's going to be a badass. And then Deion Walker, my biggest thing of Beane kind of defending it, saying he would have been an earlier pick.
Yeah,
he would have been, and I think a back issue being that big, and kind of his biggest knock when I'm looking through like all the critiques on him is he's too high. He's too high.
That's why Marino said that he wouldn't draft him.
And I mean, if you're 6'7" with a back issue, it's probably pretty damn hard to get get under the chute, the old chute drill. If you remember, in football, getting under there and banging your head off the top, and and it hurting for 2 weeks. But
sure.
So I like they knew, like Scott was saying earlier, they went with specimens. Harrison's not big, but he's the fastest. Then they went, TJ Sanders fit the role. Then they went 2 big dudes. So I like kind of the way they were going this year, of all the way one side or the other. They were either going the fastest guy or the biggest MFer there was. And I kind of like, laying that out and seeing what happens with that. But defending against the receiver pick it seemed like this kind of no receiver really popped up to them that they were in love with, because all the moves they kind of made would make sense, or they moved up to get. So they were obviously focused on this route, but it also seemed like they had some opportunities they weren't expecting to get with Landon Jackson and TJ Sanders. And I feel like Deion Walker in the last pick. I don't think they thought they were going to get these guys.
Yeah, that's interesting because, Scott, it's funny because as we, we'll go to the back end of the draft, but that's really the meat and potatoes is those those first four picks, excuse me. And one thing that I noticed in respects to that was not only just the SEC thing that that DT talked about, but that the physical traits. They are looking for a certain type of player. Yeah. They're looking for a certain type of skill set that fits what they do for McDermott's defense. And I thought that they definitely addressed that. And obviously, I think it's anytime you trade up, then you're showing conviction. I just heard on WGR on the way home that Brandon Beane was talking, to my boy Ty Dunn. I love Ty Dunn. And, Ty Dunn, when he was promoting the piece on his Go Long TD, he was talking about how, Brandon Beane's got some conviction and he's, and I retweeted after and I was like, man, I like conviction. Because that way I can call you out, good or bad. Like I can give you your flowers if you need your flowers, or I can say, what the hell are you doing? Like, what were you thinking? I want you to be convicted about your particular takes. And obviously this is the ultimate as you're an NFL GM. Scott, what did you think about those first four picks in that respect before we get to the back end of the draft and then wrap up the conversation? Because I thought that they don't care basically that what everybody thinks about Deion Walker, they don't give a shit. And the fact that they traded up for TJ Sanders, they don't give a shit. Like listen, these are our guys. We feel lucky to have Landon Jackson in the third round. Like we don't care. Like these are the guys that we think. And it'll go back to the conversation that we'll have after because that's what gets me fired up.
I think you got four guys that are going to see playing time this fall. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Hairston is probably going to come right in at CB2. Sanders, I feel like they wanted to duplicate what they like about Ed Oliver. And I don't know if that means Sanders plays behind and it's a rotation that way, or if they combine the two guys. Ed always seems to play a little better when he's got some juice around him. And then I feel like Jackson and Walker won't have the pressure of having to come in and get a starting job, because we've got meat in those. Daquan Jones, would be the guy ahead of Deion Walker. Yes. So I like that. Sure. Work those guys in, get them developed, get Walker healthy.
Got the 6 games for McGuire and Sosa.
You still got Hoyt and Ogunjobi hanging out there. So I feel like we really shored up. Like I was really worried, man, if we can't come out of there. I really was bummed when Kenneth Grant went off the board, and I had no hope he would be there. But I thought, man, if he's within 8 picks, we might be able to package it and get up
in the division.
Yeah, and he's in the division. Yeah, but Miami, whatever.
It was a joke.
Yeah. So the back end, I feel like we're just looking at development with the exception of Hawes. I think he will see time on the field.
Oh, absolutely.
As a blocking tight end, I think he's going to lock in at tight end 3.
Consensus number one blocking tight end. He
can catch the football. So who knows what's going on there?
He thinks he can?
I heard an interview with him. Sal replayed his Zoom call and said, hey, I would love to catch some footballs. They just didn't use me like that at Georgia Tech or that much at Yale, because I can catch footballs, and his confidence was solid. So he's going to be fun to watch. Absolutely. But Chase Lunt is another one of those, Spencer Brown, just like a freak.
Mm-hmm. Huge.
And, so 2 years from now, this could be your second right tackle or one of those rotational pieces on the O-line. And then Prather, I think, is into the pool you go, man. Go do your thing and see if you shake out or not.
You'll be Tyrell Shavers, see if you can carve out a niche and stay on the roster.
Yeah, I think the whole Elijah Moore thing, now the more that I think about this, was in the back of Beane's mind.
Oh, yeah.
He just didn't have to pull the trigger in the draft because he had that card sitting on the table under the mat, so to speak.
I think that's why he acted the way that he acted. It was because he already knew that Elijah Moore was on his way in town, and they had good talks with him prior to. They just wanted to see him come in, make sure that his head was right, make sure his attitude was right. Obviously, he's been on a couple teams from the Jets, and then went to the Browns. So they just wanted to see how he felt. So Beane,
he had good production last year with the Browns, and he had 7 quarterbacks thrown to him or so.
Career high 61 catches. Shitty quarterbacks. Besides, I love Jameis, but Jameis will throw the ball to the other team just as much as his own. So he's so fun. I love him. I follow on Instagram. I love Jameis.
I wish we could get him into Buffalo as a backup, man. I know the interception thing is a horrific situation, but god dang, he's good for the locker room, man. He's just I love Jameis. Dude, man.
I love him. Now, as we begin to transition tonight's episode is presented by 26 Shirts here on Buffalo Fanbase, the official Bills Mafia podcast network that DT and I simulcast on. Again, head on over to 26shirts.com. Salute to the Godfather Del Reed. He's running a great site over there. Listen, they've got great content creators for these t-shirts. They're going to support a great cause. You purchase a t-shirt, portions of the proceeds go to a family that's in need. That's in Western New York. They could be across the world. We never really know, but they do tell all the stories there under each t-shirt. Go on over to 26shirts.com. They're really cool. I think that they came up with a new concept after Beane was talking shit. So listen, head on over there to 26shirts.com. Buy a t-shirt. It will support a great cause. You won't feel bad that you did. Now, as we transition, fellas, I'm starting to get in my Twitter mode. So here's what happened, DT. Since Scott has a front.
I got some shrapnel in my left leg, man. I caught some strays, man. It was fun.
Listen. How did I end the show? I ended the show, DT, on pre-draft. What did I say? I said, listen, are we sure that we want to do this? And the reason that I said, are we sure that we want to do this, is because of the way that I named the episode. I named the name of the episode the way that I did because I'm tired, DT. I'm tired, Scott. The reason that I'm tired is every year it doesn't matter. And I pointed this out on Twitter. It doesn't matter if McDermott has a top 5 to 10 defense like he's had for the majority of the time. He's a great defensive coordinator. I take nothing away from him. Or last year's I think it was 11th in DVOA, but consensus was that was the worst McDermott defense that he's had since he's been here. Pretty much. It was not. It was not. Obviously,
we knew going in it was
other than the Jacksonville year. That's totally different. He was just getting his feet wet. Listen, it doesn't matter, DT. It doesn't matter, Scott. What defense he is fielding, he will shit the bed. Now, people on the other side will say he needs more horses. And then I say, no, he had top 10 defenses. He had Hayden Poyer. He had Trey White at the height of his pimping. He had all these different guys, and he was never getting it done. And they will try to push back. It doesn't matter the defense that McDermott has. He finds a way to shit the bed. And I am definitely scared of running up like Charlie Brown, and Lucy is holding that ball, and she's going to pull that shit for me when as soon as I get ready to kick it, I'm like, I'm getting ready to kick this ball, and I feel great and confident about the fact I'm getting ready to kick this ball. I'm getting ready to beat the Chiefs, and I feel confident about it. Last year, no one could tell me we were losing that game. I was more nervous about the Baltimore game than I was about the Chief game because of the way that Baltimore whooped our ass earlier in the year. 100%. DT, speak to it. I don't need you to align with me, but I promise you, I will be Neo in the Matrix. I will fight every Mr. Smith that comes out. I don't think that he's cut for it in respects to the playoff time. So because of that, I always want you to support Josh and do everything you can for Josh. That doesn't mean that you ignore the defense in a defensive draft that we all knew, but it does mean that I'm going to look sideways at you because of the fact that do we need TJ Sanders over another weapon? Now, again, that's before the Elijah Moore thing. I think that the wide receiver room is whatever. It's complete as it's going to be right now, and everybody eats, so no problem. I'm never buying a hat. DT. I feel like Charlie Brown, man. I do. Yeah. And I know that we can't find that out until January, and it's going to be forever away till we know the fruits of the labor. Yeah. This shit, man, I just don't have it.
You're really starting to hear it, especially this week. And the fact of people like you saying I might be out already, and then a lot of people are saying one more. A lot of people are saying one more. This happens one more time, and it's all right, then. It's McDermott's done, whatever the case is, or we just load up on offense. Just one more. I just have I am in the middle here because I agree. Like, what does it matter on the defense? And we went back a couple of years ago, and the point I bring up all the time is when those Eagles had the best defense in almost history, and then they go to the Super Bowl, and it's like a 40-40 game, and they don't get one sack on Pat Mahomes. But then you go to this year, and the defense is the complete difference maker of the playoffs and beat the shit out of the Chiefs, and that's the reason they won the game. So it's back and forth in that regard. I just didn't see a ton of opportunity other than, a mid-round pick of, really helping out. Unless we go and trade for Justin Jefferson or some crazy shit like that, which highly doubtful, obviously. I just didn't see a ton of opportunity with really what was out there. It was kind of light. It was kind of, yes, we could have drafted somebody, sure, but I didn't see a lot of opportunity where we missed out on a lot of things. Like, why weren't we on that? Why weren't we doing that?
I agree. I agree.
I didn't
I
see
agree.
like all those exits we missed. You
I
go
agree.
to, something like the Cincinnati Bengals last year. Granted, it wasn't perfect. They had injuries, whatnot, but a team that said, screw defense. We're just going to focus on offense. We got a franchise quarterback. We're going to load up on offense, see what happens. And granted, this isn't a perfect.
It's
thing.
not, but I understand because I got hit. I got bludgeoned in the head with Cincinnati.
Them to get so far back that they can't even make the playoffs.
I understand.
And I think we would argue, say, well, screw the defense.
Josh Allen is never going to be that
We're
bad.
going to score. We're not going to miss the playoffs with Josh Allen. But then that goes to the exact argument of, well, if Josh Allen is that good, well, then why does he need all these people? So it's a big circular thing. And as much as I agree, Rob, like, I'm getting sick of it, and that what has he done to showing us different? It's the same thing the last 7 years. We're great. We get into the big moments, and there's some sort of barf on us, and we shit ourselves and go home heartbroken and got to cry about it for a few months until we're here on the draft talk again. But I just didn't see a lot of opportunities for that this year. I mean, they went out and they would have been on.
I'm sure that they were in on DK Metcalf.
Who they think, who I agree, Khalil Shakir's been nothing but productive. You got to bank on Keon Coleman having that, trajectory he was on that kind of got curbed with the injury. You got to bank on him, really taking off, and Josh Palmer and Elijah Moore being productive, more productive than Amari Cooper and Matt Collins were. And that's kind of where you're at again in another MVP run. But I agree. I'm going to be very upset if it happens again, and I think I'm in the one more crowd. I think you're in the out right now crowd.
I've been out since 13 seconds. What the fuck are you talking about?
I'm in the one more crowd, but I didn't see a lot of opportunity for us to make those big splashes and really kind of go all in on offense and say.
And we'll agree that he was probably in on DK, right? You'll say that, right? You would, Beane. We're talking about Beane. Like, Beane was probably he was sniffing around. He was doing his job. Okay.
Yeah, and I agree. And I just, it the number, but the number is going to be the number, and it's only going to get bigger with these receivers. It can't be like, oh, well, we can't pay a receiver $30 million. Well, you're going to have to pay Khalil Shakir $30 million. If he was,
that leads to a conversation, Scott. I want to know what you think. Please don't tell me that 14 soured Brandon Beane altogether because he talked about Beane in that interview too. He talked about that too. And you know that you already know me, Scott, and DT definitely knows. He's been my ride or die. I'm a 14 apologist, so I'll stick up for it anytime. And I noticed that he put that dig in there when he was like, pun intended. He was like, we showed you that we could do it without Stephon Diggs. What are y'all talking about? And as soon as he said Stephon Diggs, I was like, wait a minute. Are you trying to say that you prefer everybody eats? Now, obviously, they've done that the last year. They're going to ride into it again this year. Do you think that Brandon Beane is scared and you take the time, you take the floor? Because I can't imagine that the 4 most productive seasons a Buffalo Bills wide receiver has ever given this franchise, and that includes the Hall of Famer Andre Reed, who I love. I can't believe that Beane was soured on how it ended, where he's like, I'll never do that again. I would just be flabbergasted if that's his position. I really would.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think he's really annoyed with how it ended, but I think he'd pull the trigger if he had the right guy at the right spot and the right money. I think like DK Metcalf, I think he'd pull the trigger. But I think at the same time, he's not impressed. And when you got to eat 31 large because of I don't know what the hell that all was, drama stuff, that's painful. But he pulled the Band-Aid off and off we go. But I think that probably
he was impressed with the production, though. He was impressed with the production. AFC Championship game, that's just as far as they got last year.
I don't think you can live on, and we saw that's why we had to go get Amari Cooper. Like, we tried everybody eats, and it stayed that way all season. It was still everybody eats, but we had to up the talent level of the everybody part. Like, we were trying to do everybody eats with right? Now, Mac Hollins ended up showing out better than a lot of people thought, but he's not. I mean, I call him a dude because he's swagger and he made some big plays, but he's topped out where he's at. So I think we can get away with another year because Supposedly Palmer is going to be an upgrade to the room. Elijah Moore is going to bring us some speed. So everybody eats is not as frightening. Would it be cool if you could just smash Palmer and Moore into an alpha wide receiver 1 and have that guy? Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah, it would. But we don't have it. But I think our everybody eats can work. The problem
it worked.
is
it worked.
Hopefully everybody stays humble enough that you don't have people screaming for reps or targets.
He mentioned that too.
Yeah.
What are you, a Brandon Beane? What do you work for Beane? He mentioned that too. He said when you got those guys, he said they could start barking for targets. And I was like, wait a minute. And he mentioned Diggs, then he mentions that. I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
I don't
think we have that guy right now, though.
No, of course not. Of course not. That's why I'm asking, is he scared?
Yeah.
Like, does he not scared, but like, does he have trepidation over doing it again for a DK or for one of those big guys because of how it ended? Because to me, that makes no sense because of the production that 14 brought you over those 4 years. So the people that don't like 14 and want to rail on him, I say, I have scoreboard. We made it to the AFC Championship game with him.
I don't have a
made
problem
it to the
with
AFC Championship
Diggs.
game with everybody eats.
He's who he is. I don't know the man. You know, he likes to be super subversive,
it's the crowd. He missed
guy and all
an
that.
OTA, and then everybody was ready to kick him out of
brought Josh
Buffalo.
Allen into his moment. And then Josh continued after. And I love that Josh was just fine without him. That's not an indictment on Stephon Diggs. That's just Josh's trajectory. You know, and Stephon had a big role in getting Josh into that top tier elite level quarterback.
It was a symbiotic relationship.
Absolutely.
Good for each
other.
other.
I think all of those things can be true. So I'm excited to see that everybody eats, see if it can work 2 years in a row, but I don't know how sustainable it is. I just,
I say the same thing on Twitter, and I get shouted down by Whittle and those guys, and they'll tell me they just did it. And I'm like, I understand. One caveat, I'll throw it to you, DT, as we begin to wrap up tonight. The one caveat I want to remind Bills Mafia, Nickel City crew, please don't gloss over this as we begin to close tonight. Last year, our Buffalo Bills took the ball back, took the ball away at a very high clip. Mm-hmm. They gave the ball away at a historically low clip.
Yes.
They had 8 turnovers in 17 regular season games. That is freakishly efficient. And the ball is oblong. There is no way that anyone in Bills Mafia or anyone that covers the NFL could ever make me think that is something that I should expect this year. So because of that, I feel like there's just a regression to the mean that is just natural because it's football, because the ball bounces funny when it's on the ground. It's really, really weird. Sometimes it bounces off their hands and into a defender's hands. If you think that the Bills are going to only have 8 turnovers every single season with this everybody eats approach, I think that you are grossly underestimating the power of luck. It's a lot of it.
Well, and let's just talk honest, real talk for a minute as we get this thing toward the end here. I'm not going to be shy about saying it. We're lucky we got to the AFC Championship.
I said that.
Period.
We lost to Baltimore.
Look, we were there at the end, so we did our part, but we didn't win that game because we dominated the Baltimore Ravens. We won that game at the end on a play where Mark Andrews drops the football.
Go ahead, DT. I see you frowning. I know
now. A lot of things have to happen in a game.
Let DT go. I see you frowning.
Yeah.
I said that on Twitter, and I got smacked in the head. They're like, "What are you talking about? We beat them. We beat them." I'm like, I understand that we beat them. There was a lot of luck that goes along with it. What? Bernard didn't force that fumble? I'm like, yes, he forced the fumble, and we still could have lost at the end of the game.
Yeah, good fortune. It went our way, and I'm happy with that. I won't apologize for it.
It's a little bit closer than I think.
I agree, but I also I deter to I said it felt different, and it felt like our year more than any other year last year at a few times. It felt like there was a dominant force behind 17 that was going to be tough to stop no matter what. Yes, that specific situation bounced our way and worked out for us, but I think we deserved to win that game. We did not deserve to win the Kansas City Chiefs game. We got outplayed in all facets, offense, defense, special teams, and coaching there. We did not deserve to win that game, and we're probably a little more in it than we should have been it could have been a blowout before halftime if Josh doesn't throw a dime to, Matt Collins before halftime. So
that's right. That's true.
I do not expect to have as low turnovers and get as many turnovers. I do not expect, but what I do expect is an increase in production from somebody on that offensive, scheme that wasn't there last year. I expect Keon Coleman to be better. I expect Dalton Kincaid to be better.
He's the one where a lot of people are looking at.
Josh Palmer and Elijah Moore to be better than Amari Cooper and Matt Collins combined. I expect those guys to be better. I don't expect James Cook to have 16 touchdowns again, but I expect Ray Davis to be better. I expect Ty Johnson to be just as good. So I do not expect we are going to be in that same turnover margin. It's just not possible, as you said it, and I agree. And everyone, I think that's just fact at that point. But I do expect better production to make up for what we lose when we were grateful for all those turnovers this year.
Yep. I think the defensive takeaways will be okay, though. I think they can sustain a high clip, maybe not that high, but it'll be there. But I think the offense, man, that was insane. That was absolute anomaly, and I'm with you, especially with two for sure significant new sets of hands with Palmer and Elijah Moore, settling in and getting chemistry together. And I think Cook had a freakishly, wonderful season as far as touchdowns go. I'm kind of curious to see what they do with James Cook. I really like him. I could get a second contract for James Cook if he stays healthy. I'm fine with that, but it's not going to be at the top of the league. Like it can't be. And one thing we got Ty Johnson and Ray Davis behind him. So we kind of have a luxury. I thought we might make a package with Cook to move up and do something in the draft. I thought that's a trade.
Yeah, but then that's going to make me mad though, because like, why are we trading away weapons for Josh? That gets me back to that same thing.
Yes,
like,
I got you.
Subtracting from 17. So
yes, I got you.
I'm where I'm at. Where I'm at, Scott. I mean, as we begin to wrap up tonight, I didn't want anybody to gloss over that point, and I appreciate you guys' opinions on that. Not that you agree with me, but that just whenever I hear people talk about that, it's almost like I called it poison. Everybody eats this poison because of the fact that it makes you wipe out the years of the Diggs era. Okay, that's fine. You want to wipe it out and act like it didn't happen and act like we didn't have extreme success. He's the most productive wide receiver in a 4-year period over Andre Reed. I mean, it's hands down. The numbers speak for themselves. But then in addition to that, now you're trying to tell me that this approach is better than that based on the fact that it's all kumbaya. And what did kumbaya get us? Kumbaya got us to the exact same level that we got during the Diggs era. So because of that, I don't think that it's sustainable because of the fact that I'm on my side, and I don't think that I want a dog. I want somebody that the defensive coordinator on Saturday night is like, oh shit, man, like we're getting ready to go up against, whoever, and like, man, this guy is a dog. Like Keon, let's say Keon Coleman flourishes, and he like, man, Keon's a dog, man. We got to figure out, we got to bracket coverage. We're gonna have to
saw that when Cooper got on the field. All of a sudden, Keon Coleman's open. What's that all about? Well,
yeah, but then Brandon Beane champions the fact that even though he wasn't productive, we scored 7 more points per game. So if that's the case, then then that's fine. That means that it worked. So listen, man, everybody eats is poison to me. I don't like it, but I cannot say that it didn't work last year because of the fact of the results. The results said that it worked. I just don't know how sustainable it is when you add in the turnovers, which anybody banking on turnovers, I think you're making a big, big mistake. I really do. Listen, Scott, we appreciate you coming on again tonight and sharing some of your thoughts, man. I really appreciate you linking up with us, man. It's good to Give us a Nickel City Crew tailgate report as we close out tonight, Scott. I know you're out there in Ohio. We've got, what is it, Kentucky Derby? I think BT told me.
Yeah, it's mid-julep weekend, horse racing. Yep.
Yeah, what's on the menu this weekend as we close up?
Man, I'm looking at a bunch of rain, but I got to get to the meat market, and I think I'm going to be grilling out in the rain on Saturday. I'm going to go pork chops, man.
Do it. DT, close us out, man. Your Nickel City Crew tailgate report. What do we got today? What do we got this weekend? What's on slate?
I love the Derby. Big Derby fan. Me and the boys enjoy it a lot. We got a nice crew tomorrow. I think we're going to do a little our own makeshift Derby bar crawl. We're going to get dressed up in our pastels and our hats, and hit a few spots, and then
like you're in Kentucky,
and then end it at a place to watch the Derby, and try to win some money. Had a decent year last year. Hit the winner last year, and
so it's fun. I like that.
Yeah,
I like that. I've got it. I'm daddy duty all weekend, man. So I've got the Kings. And the moms are working and all that other stuff. So I'm chilling tonight. I'm going to try to recharge the battery. And then we've got soccer tomorrow. We've got baseball tomorrow. We've got haircut tomorrow. We've got every damn thing tomorrow. And then by Sunday, I'm hoping to really be able to just to relax and then watch some playoffs. So I know the playoffs in the basketball and NHL are still going on.
And
so
NHL playoffs have been blessed.
But Saturday, it's funny because I'm not a horse racing fan, but it's like it is something that people like. It's like clockwork. Every year they've got their own little traditions. Every year they've got their own little routines and stuff like that. So I don't know. I guess I'll be 40 in the summer. Maybe I should get, I don't know what tradition. Maybe I should get a tradition. Maybe look up and Google how to make a mint julep and then bet
they're good.
$20 on a horse that I have no idea about, like, and lose $20 on a horse. But how fun would it be if they won? So I have no idea, man. But I think I do. I think I need to grow up and finally get a Kentucky Derby weekend routine. I think I need to put my big boy pants on.
It's fun.
Routine.
Yeah, and it's in the off season, so it kind of fills that void of like the football, gives
juices flowing.
We're not invested really in these NHL or NBA teams, and the playoffs are good to watch, but the Derby, even if you're putting $2 to $5, $10 on somebody, you're going to be cheered for it, right?
You're
I'll be watching like hell if my money's on it.
It's fun. It's a good vibe, and it's on my. I want to get down there. It's on my bucket list to actually attend. So
that's what's up. That's cool, man. Listen, I appreciate you guys tonight. I think that overall, I think that even the wide receiver trained folks like myself that are passengers on, we knew that it was going to be a defensive draft. I don't think that anybody was surprised by that. I think Brandon Beane was. I think you guys had some good points, like about being tired and then flexing about Josh and then flexing about like you critiquing me and I, what I mean. I do this like all year long and like you don't know my board, and which is true. We don't know the board. But I do like Scott's point. I don't think he necessarily understood what they were trying to ask because of the fact that he doesn't listen to WGR like we do and stuff like that. So I think he kind of missed a little bit of the context, but I really enjoyed it. It was great radio and it led for a great week. I heard Stephen A. Smith talking about the Buffalo Bills in the offseason. I'm like, now I know this motherfucker don't know nothing about the Buffalo Bills, like unless it's playoff time. So it was really, really fun. He made it all the way to everybody. McAfee. I think NFL Live I was watching the other day with Quincy on the couch and they were talking about, Brandon Beane, tell us what you really think. I was like, he's on NFL Live? Like, what is going on? Like, so it was a really cool week. Like you guys said, it was great radio. Listen,
well, hey, if we ever get him on the crew, we know we be ready.
Wear your gloves. Don't want to fight my black ass. I'm ready to fight anybody. I am Neo. I will
wear your safety gear, man.
I will fight anybody. I love it. I love it. Listen, out there, spread love, not hate. These were my Bills thoughts said out loud. All right, fellas, hit them with a Go Bills. We'll be back next week. We got some surprises coming up for you, Nickel City crew. Hit them with a Go Bills.
Go Bills, baby.
Go Bills.
Y'all have a good weekend.
Go Bills.